I
Good to
guess
see you, sir.
it's a bustling classroom at 9 p.m. So I'm sorry I can't be at this wonderful classroom, but delighted to be with you all, everybody.
Hear some insights from your end. So I think so that's the reason all excited and charged.
So whenever we're ready, we can start right in.
Just doing a mic check. I hope I'm audible to everybody. Can somebody just give a thumbs up?
Yeah, you are
All
audible, maybe.
perfect. Sure. So good evening, everyone. It's an honor to be here with all of you as we begin with yet another thought-provoking session as part of the CXO series. In a world where lines between classroom theory and real-world practices are increasingly blurred, the guest speaker team here at XLRI Jamshedpur has launched this initiative that bridges the gap seamlessly. The CXO series is more than just a platform. Trust me, it's a gateway to the minds and experiences of the leaders who are shaping industries and driving innovation in today's dynamic business environment. This initiative, driven by the PGTM General Management Badge, brings to our doorstep some of the most eminent senior leaders and business heads from diverse sectors and industries. It's a rare opportunity for us as future leaders to glean wisdom, practical insights, and guidance from those who've navigated the complexities of the corporate world and emerged as successful leaders. We had the honor of hosting some of the dignitaries, such as Mr. Amish Mehta, Managing Director and CEO at CRISIL, Mr. Gaurav Sharma, Chief People Officer of Hindustan Coca-Cola Beverages, Mr. Sanjeev Krishnan, Chairman PwC India, Mr. Vishal Sharma, National Managing Director and President of Deloitte Consulting India, and Mr. Ritesh Chopra, Partner and Chief Operating Officer of KPMG Global Services, and many more, of course. Through the CXO series, we're not just learning about the business strategies of market trends, we're learning about leadership, resilience, and the art of making tough decisions. This is where the theories we study at classrooms meet the reality of corporate culture, and where we, as upcoming managers and leaders, can prepare ourselves to face the challenges of tomorrow. As we embark on this journey of learning and inspiration, let us keep in mind these words by John Adams. If your action inspires others to dream more, learn more, and become more, you are a leader. This CXO series is our opportunity to learn from those whose action continue to inspire industries and leaders alike. Let's make the most out of it. With that, inviting my fellow batchmate, Smith Trivedi, for inviting our guest of honor for the day. Smith, all over to you.
Hello, my dear batchmates. Let us give an exciting and a warm welcome to Mr. Sandeep Batra. Mr. Batra has been leading the Wealth and Personal Banking Division at HSBC since August 2022. And he's just not about managing money, he's about helping people reach their financial dreams. With over 25 years of experience across Russia, Thailand, Singapore, and India, Mr. Batra brings a wealth of knowledge. He is an alumnus of IIM Bangalore and believes in making finance more personal and humane. Today, we are thrilled to hear from someone who's as much as about building relationships as he is about building wealth. Please join me in welcoming our distinguished guest of honor, Mr. Sandeep Batra.
Thank you so much, guys. Delighted to be here. So we could, yeah, we will be guided by you. We could happy to take questions, or you can kick it off and then we can let it flow.
Absolutely. So we just thought, if you have some initial words or some initial insights for the batch, we'll start off with that. And maybe then I have two of my colleagues with whom we'll sort of start with the fireside chat segment. So just few words from your side, and then we'll sort of begin with that segment.
Absolutely, Niti. One, very, very delighted that you're taking the time out to speak to me. 25 years just flies. I was not so long back in a similar classroom at IIM Bangalore. It's been a very eventful journey. I came back to India after about 18 years of being overseas in a bunch of countries, worked across 15 markets in one way, form or the other. When I moved to Mumbai in 2022, this is the 25th apartment of my life. So clearly, enjoying finding new places, building new relationships. I spent a majority of my career at Citi, building businesses, doing M&A, acquisitions, scaling up businesses, done a variety of roles, including being a chief risk officer, running businesses. Joined HSBC 2 years back. It's a very, very exciting time for the bank here in India. HSBC has been in India for 170 plus years. Uh, I cover a business called Wealth and Personal Banking. It's typically our largest business around the world. Wherever we serve a human being, whether it's our asset management business, our private bank, our retail bank, whether you take a card, a mortgage, interact with a branch, those are the businesses I cover. We acquired L&T Mutual Fund about 18 months back. That's taken us much further in our asset management business, our mutual fund business. We run a joint venture with Canara Bank called Canara HSBC. So lots of exciting opportunities, and I couldn't resist kind of being in the middle of the India action. And so with me and the family, we decided to come back here exactly 2 years back. I think, but when we look at life, right, I think you build careers, and quite often many of these appear like unrelated dots, right? And somehow, as people said, the dots add up. More importantly, right, when you look back at your times, you say, listen, did you have a time which was fulfilling? Did you enjoy the journey or not? You think about, did you worry about things which honestly did not matter? And most importantly, when you had the opportunity, did you focus on the most important things, health, building relationships, and so on and so forth? So very happy to have a candid, unscripted conversation. We can speak about wealth, the markets. I bought my first stock in school, right? I was fortunate on starting this journey very early. Got hooked to the capital markets. Capital markets are a great leveler, but you learn a lot through the capital markets. I think in these 3+ decades, traded across all kind of markets, and then realized that the only way to make money is to gradually let it compound, right? And so delighted to speak about that or any other things which may be on people's minds. I think safe space, open conversation, the academic environment is the best environment to have a free flowing conversation.
Right. No, absolutely, sir. And like you rightly mentioned, I feel like as an organization that you represent, it has been one of the market leaders, of course, but also been going through a lot of change. So we would love to hear your insights around that. But thank you so much for that context setting. We'll now move on to the segment, which is the fireside chat. For that, I would like to invite two of my colleagues who will be sort of moderating the conversation with you. So inviting firstly Kala, she's an economics honor graduate and comes with 6 years of experience in risk consulting and innovation strategy consulting. She was associated with KPMG India, Sinov Management Consulting, wherein she's advised Fortune 500 companies and also worked with industry bodies such as NASSCOM through strategic support and thought leadership engagement. My another colleague who's present here on the call is Arpita. She's an IT analyst with 6 years of experience in data analytics, operations and project management in the BFSI sector. So with her expertise in cloud platforms and agile methodology, she's backed by her strong domain knowledge in digital banking and payment networks. So she's worked in cutting edge fintech products as well, such as digital wellness, peer-to-peer payment system, card tokenization, and many more. and worked with pretty much all the global financial institutions and Big Four companies. So welcome Kala and Arpita, and over to you folks for a very engaging conversation that we're all looking forward to.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Nidhi. Good evening, sir. I'm so thrilled to be in conversation with you. First of all, welcome to the Fireside Chat here online with XLRI. About that context, you said, that was going to be my first question to ask you, and whatever I'm going to ask you, all the questions are pretty much reflective of what the batch wants to know. The batch is very eager to be in conversation with you, sir. So the first question that comes to mind is, as you already said, you're from IIM Bangalore and you have been managing many roles in Citi and HSBC, and you've been working for like almost 20 years abroad. How does one build a career in a banking organization that can take them all the way to being the managing director? Like, what are the kind of issues that you have had to deal with in your day-to-day and in terms of larger issues?
Right. No, I think honestly, as I said, it doesn't seem like 25 years at all. But I think the approach really, in my view, is massively being open-minded, right? I think banking is changing, right? HSBC came to India 170 years back, initially through Mercantile Bank and then through itself. At that point of time, things were about facilitating trade between one or countries, bullion trading. Sometimes branches were used to store bullion, right? And banking is the first ATM HSBC brought to India. Much of innovation, but I think it is whether we are open-minded or not, right? Because banking is about all of us, right? Banking is about saving, protecting, planning for the future. It is about helping companies or individuals grow and work with them in their lives. Secondly, like any other industry, it is working with people and technology, right? So I think, and I've been very fortunate that my journey has taken me through multiple cultures, and I think as Indians, I think we are diversity friendly, right? I'm sure in the batch, in the class, people from different parts of the country would be there, different backgrounds would be there. I'm sure in the class we speak multiple languages, right? So that's sometimes inherent in us, right? But are we ready to kind of really use that to work with people around us, right? Now, I think if we can learn these two things, work with people around us and work with technology, there is no industry which you will not succeed in. There are, I'm told, 50 million cases in India which are pending judicial pending in the judicial system. Ultimately, it is either a business or an individual or two individuals or two businesses or a government and a business and a government and an individual not being able to work with each other, right? So you need judicial outcomes, right? Ultimately, people who can work with people succeed, right? Whether in a bank or in any corporate setup. Relearning things ground up. I remember being very excited about the launch of the internet bank 20 plus years back. You wouldn't imagine what a mobile app would look like. I love to put myself in very uncomfortable situations. So when I thought I was doing extremely well in a global role in Stanchart, I took up a risk management role, right? Which is something I had never done in that particular market, and I went to a risk management role, rose to being the chief risk officer. And when I thought I was very comfortable in that, I moved back to the business, right? So one, just keeping yourself uncomfortable is fantastic. Working with new kind of people, keeping yourself uncomfortable and being ready to learn, relearn, and learn again, right? And 2 years back, I restarted that journey. I joined HSBC, came back to India, and just incredible how when you redefine your journey, when you restart your journey, the full energy stack is full and you're ready to go.
Thank you, sir. That was quite insightful. Working with people and working with technology, those are the two pillars that everything else depends upon. I'm going to leave it to Kala to continue the conversation.
All right, sir. So the next question would essentially be, from taking it from what you said, putting yourself in uncomfortable situations and new situations or unfamiliar rather. So seeing that you worked with in a variety of geographies, right? Like Russia and Singapore and Thailand and India now. So it would be really interesting to know how the nuances are of banking in these different places. And there's a lot of cultural differences that come in your customer segment. So it would be really interesting to understand your perspective on this. So.
I think each as humans, at a common level, we're all common, right? I think we like to with similar aspirations. We want to save, protect, think about our families, have dreams about the future. But there are nuances, right? I think if you work I was 2 years back leading a very large business in Russia, right? I think Russia is unique. It's obviously going through a unique circumstance at this point of time as well. In Thailand, you will build relationships which are more deeper, more personal. In Singapore, super multicultural. In Korea, I remember doing a due diligence and being a part of an integration process. You will have a certain approach, but at the end of the day, are you making that effort? One, to understand, are you just bringing yourself what you know, or are you ready to learn it again? Right. So when I went to Russia, I think the digital sophistication in Russia at that point of time was absolutely one generation ahead. Right. So would you actually spend time understanding how the clients locally behave, how businesses behave, what the systems and processes look like, what an app of a local bank would do versus what at that point of time Citi would be able to do? How do you play to your strengths in that particular market? But also what excites people, right? So here in India, if we have global opportunities, we are all a very globally mobile population per se, right? In Thailand, I wouldn't be able to convince one person to move overseas. People want to be in the country they are, right? Similarly, promotions, right? In Russia, if I posted a role for a senior position, the one downs and the two downs would want to apply, right? There would be like 12 applicants for one job in 24 hours. In Thailand, my own team, when I was leaving, said, listen, we do not want to apply for your role. It is too stressful. And the additional money and is not worth it, right? So each market, what ticks people, right? What excites them, what motivates them, right? If you figure that out, but some things are common. I think people want to work with broadly people who are trustworthy. People increasingly want to work for authenticity rather than one single corporate cut, right? And if you can be authentic, vulnerable, but at the same point of time, very quickly come up the curve, right? Because not only does the culture change, fundamentals of a market are very different, right? The regulators are different. The rules of the road can be different. Very often we work with different languages, and for a few months, etc., your learning is damn cool, but very quickly you got to also come up the curve and start adding value. Here in India, I came back, right? I got exposed to everything from how Aadhaar would connect to open banking, to how the bureaus would integrate themselves, to how SME bureaus versus individual bureaus would behave, on how UPI and NPCI would connect with the payment systems. Right? That was very different from a market. So many things very common and so many things very different. And then you say, how do you kind of decompose that in a modular manner and start to build a business and superpower growth?
Right, absolutely. So it looks like the secret recipe is to be open to learning and adapting. So makes sense. So over to you, Arpita.
With that conversation about multiculturalism and working in several nations across the world. So let's talk about a truly multinational organization, which is HSBC. So can you tell us a bit more about HSBC and its various businesses?
Sure. No, I think it is genuinely a corporation which is global like no other, right? I think we are in 60 plus countries. We are speak 100 plus languages. Very often when you're dealing with people, you've got to be working with people all the way from China to Mexico to the UK, right? So truly multicultural. I was in fact privileged to host an event in Jaipur earlier this year where we had people from 30 different nationalities participate and come to India. As a firm, the firm delivered a PBT, right, of $30 billion plus last year, right? If you just think about that number, that's roughly what a very large country, the entire banking industry would generate in profitability. So $30+ billion of profitability last year. The first half itself, the PBT exceeds $20 billion, right? So one, a very large corporation. The corporation banks businesses. It supports the markets. It supports individuals. Wealth and personal banking, which is a business I run here in India. Last year, out of the $30-odd billion of PBT, 12 billion came from wealth and personal banking. It's a business which has been in India forever. In fact, next month we celebrate 100 years of our branch in Calcutta. So one single branch in Calcutta completing 100 years of presence. Just imagine all what would have happened in the 100 years, from the Great Depression to the World Wars to the Independence Day of India to all the turbulence, great days, bad days. But the bank every morning opened to business, right? So it's a phenomenal enterprise from that standpoint. We've been investing aggressively in India. India last year was the third largest profit contributor to the group. This year, we just declared our profits in India for the first half, north of $750 million of PBT in first half of the year. I think we are definitely the most profitable multinational bank. We could actually be the most profitable multinational in India. Double-digit percentage of trade, FX, FDIs flow through us every day from an Indian standpoint. We bank half of India's unicorns. We bank half of India's multinationals. We're the preferred bank for the affluent, preferred bank for the NRIs, and everything else, whether a mortgage business which is thriving, an asset management business which is doing very well, and a cards business which we are superpowering.
Right, sir. That was quite the information about HSBC.
So in
Kala.
fact, the many institutions in India, right? I think whether think of NPCI, right, which runs UPI. HSBC is a founder shareholder, owns up 7+% of an institution like NPCI, been a part of that setup journey from day one. So you think of any important institution which have been set up, you will find HSBC kind of involved. Even when the bank was set up in India, two Indian merchants were involved with the global setup, right? So both India and HSBC have deep interlinkages, strong global powerhouse, deeply invested in India, right? I think that's the way to think about the bank.
It's truly mind-boggling to think about a branch that has held its place 100 years in India. It's to think on that scale. Okay, thank you so much, sir. Over to you, Nidhi. Sorry, Kala.
All right. So while you have touched upon the genesis of HSBC and the kind of rich, all of the phases of banking it has seen, even in India, given how dynamic the banking sector has become, especially in India with the whole India stack and all of that that is happening, it would be really interesting to know what is the current focus of HSBC in India right now, and where do you see, so to say, a plan of action, or how do you see the next building blocks? What are the next building blocks you see?
I think we are very excited about everything Indian, right? I think we have to be, but our board was here in December. Our entire holdings board came to the country. We spent time with pretty much everybody who's kind of powering this India stack, from Nandan Nilekani spending time with us to the large corporations, to the regulators, to the ministries, right? We are very excited, right? I think, and just imagine this India tech stack is so beneficial to people like us. You have a solid brand. You're building physical distribution. I'll give you a few examples, right? So it took me 5 days typically to approve a credit card, right? Because you had to go pick up an application form, you need documents, the paper would flow to a centralized unit, and it would get processed, and then somebody would take a look, you approve it. In our new process, which we started about a year back now, and we've been improving it every day, you do that in 40 seconds because you authenticated the client on Aadhaar. You've checked other stuff you wanted to check on DigiLocker. You can use Sehmati or open banking to look at cash flows. You can check the credit bureau. And that's all API, that's all kind of pulling all this information. You've just clicked apply. And once we've authenticated you, we know all about you. We sometimes know a lot more than your traditional banker who's not just had the opportunity to go through this over a period of time. And in 40 seconds, you are decisioning better than the 5 days you were taking. Right? Now, this is scalable. You have a fantastic global brand. You have a national brand. Similarly, NRI banking, right? If you were NRI anywhere in the world, you wanted to open up an account back in India, you're using similar tech stack, right? And powering it. Now, when the student is going to study overseas, we are actually helping people open their accounts, say in a Singapore, a Hong Kong, a London, or New York, even before that student or the professional has reached that place, right? So I think we are very excited, right? We are excited about the corporate bank. We're excited about the markets business. In the markets business, we have, again, piloted range of new things. So whether the first swaps, the first CBDC, the digital currency which got set up by RBI, we were a starting member, or whether on the wealth and personal bank side. We launched the private bank last year, focusing on the affluent. So very, very, very exciting time. I think we are all very lucky, right? And I think you guys are a little bit luckier, right? That you get to start your career in what is a very incredibly exciting India. I still have some luck because I have some runway to go, but I think we're all very fortunate that this is a time when there is so much change and scalability of a level which was not seen before is here in front of our eyes. Right? Asset management, again, the mutual fund business, we're very, very excited about. We acquired L&T. If you just invested in a multi-cap fund last year, you'd be up 90%, right? Because you got fantastic analyst teams. You're bringing both globality and local knowledge to power that. But if you wanted to say, listen, I wanted global investment opportunities, we could help you open an account in Singapore, and you wanted to buy that NVIDIA stock, which by the way is up 6% today, right? We could get that done. You could open an account in Singapore and start trading the global markets in a day, right? So the combination of what the firm represents, which is global, and combination of the incredible opportunity in India, I think it is for us to be able to execute the growth, right? But our ambitions are really high.
Thank you for that, sir. In fact, I can truly attest to this. Most of my friends working and studying abroad, particularly in the UK, every single one of them had opened their first bank account with HSBC. So I can truly attest to that. So, sir, we are going to move on to something more current. So we are going to talk about CBDCs or central bank digital currencies. So as more and more countries are moving towards CBDCs, such as India, so there's a sort of disintermediation or disconnect that traditional banks have with CBDCs, which kind of challenge traditional banks as more customer deposits may leave these traditional banks in favor of CBDCs, which may lead to a decrease in deposit funding available with traditional banks. So how does the banking sector plan on countering this?
See, banks are an incredible part of the CBDC. So if you look at the CBDC pilots today in India, both on the wholesale side and the retail side, it is actually the banks working with the central bank, piloting the CBDC system. I understand that the deposit in the case of CBDC is not necessarily with the bank. But I think the formalization of the economy, the financialization of the economy, moving away from physical cash, bullion, into investing into the banking system, into putting deposits, into taking loans, into payments, is only going to superpower banks, right? I think the banks are going to be a net beneficiary. We speak about disintermediation all the time. This time we're talking about CBDC. Earlier it was capital markets. Before that it was peer-to-peer loans, and before that it was something else, right? So competition is great. I think challenge is great. Redefining business models is great. But banking is a very vibrant industry. And banks are full of people like you, right? Who are aware, who are ready for a challenge, who are ready to reinvent themselves, right? What I can guarantee is that what we will do in 2024 will not make us succeed in 2026, right? So you have to be constantly upgrading yourself. When CBDC came, HSBC was the pilot bank for the wholesale model of CBDC. We're keenly watching the CBDC space, not only in India, right? That's the beauty. When it was happening in another market, we were a part of the pilot, right? We are seeing CBDC closely here in India, but I think fast payments itself, right? I think the client has a choice. You could have money with the bank, it could be interest bearing, and you could pay as nimbly and as quickly uh, using fast payments like UPI. If you wanted an even quicker transaction, you got UPI Lite, right? Which happens even quicker without entering that PIN, or you could use CBDC, right? I think ultimately clients deserve choice. They should have choice. No industry should be complacent, and banks should be the last industry to feel complacent, right? I think, but banks build trust over a very long period of time. They also work with the client. See, the placing a deposit is just one of the things which the bank does. The bank facilitates payments. They help you take a loan when you buy the first house, or your car, or a personal loan, or when you're setting up your business, or when you're moving overseas, right? So all of us, all of you, will go through multiple life stages, right? And a bank will walk with you at every stage of that life process, right? And if you find the right bank, you will find people who will stick with you through multiple geographies and multiple countries. And you could be a borrower to an early saver to hit retirement, and you would find different solutions being delivered to you on a consistent basis.
Right. So, sir, taking some cues from the points that you've made about not being complacent and, being dynamic, and banking is probably the last industry that should be static, right? So, let's talk about the new players that are coming up, right, from outside of the traditional uh, BFSI sector, and taking up even more prominent roles in the front end banking. So even if in the Indian scenario we see neobanks and fintechs as such are sort of spinning off and as not just enabling platform, they're going on to become lending platforms. And if you see cash rich companies such as Square and PayPal, they are becoming that, and they come with unique capabilities of hyper personalization. And I suppose we all are spoiled for choices in this day and age. That hyper personalization is no more an augmented proposition; it's becoming more of an embodied or a core proposition. So, having said this, and in context of regulatory requirements, how do legacy banks such as yours, who come with such rich sort of banking expertise, um, how are you sort of envisioning navigating these kind of dynamic landscape that the fintech space is seeing, especially in India?
No, I think we are as much as a fintech as anybody else, right? We are about finance, and we use technology in everything we do, right? I think, having said that, as I said, the space is dynamic, right? We partner with startups, we partner with fintechs, which is why I started with the fact that we bank half of India's unicorns, right? There are so many partners. When we find good use cases, we would partner with companies. We would build our own capabilities. We would transfer best practices from around the world. We would be part of institution building. At Gift City, we are one of the largest banks. For example, Gift City is a few years old, right? But it is India's overseas financial center, right? And new opportunity came. India wanted to do something new. You're a part of it practically from an early day, and you go on to become one of the largest players there. So I think you will occasionally have frenemies. You will partner with companies and you will compete with them. Um, Quite often, I have seen this is a personal view and not necessarily anybody else, but I have seen the environment shift from competition to collaboration, right? So many of the companies you spoke about using the lending as, for example, a use case you spoke about, the balance sheet very likely is of the bank, right? The credit decisioning also is very likely of the bank, right? Now you could be using technology. So if you say logged into Cred, for example, as an app, you could see a loan, right? Now you may like that interface, and you may choose to borrow at that interface, but the loan could be powered by a bank. But at the same point of time, I could collaborate with a company like that, or I could also have my UI and UX, and we should be as obsessed about design and UI as UX as anybody else, right? So, we and banks will collaborate. They will occasionally compete, and we should never shy away from competing when appropriate. But you got trust as the number one factor, right? So just this bank competing for that long, right, being stable for that period of time, you trust your life savings with banks, right? You depend on banks when it is the most critical moment. When you're buying that house, the most important part of that buying that house is actually buying that house. It is not the housing loan, right? It is the fact that you building the dream home and you want to move in with your family. You want the bank to come through with that loan in the right time, right? And so you could have this cool app doing this and that another cool app doing something else and the third cool app doing something else, right? But do you want to actually be busy running your life, or do you want to be busy downloading apps, right? And I think, which is why I'm working with consistent partners who should be nimble, who should be competitive, who should be offering you the right advice, I think consistently works. But I think the fintechs have done a phenomenal role in the system. I think on payments, right, quite often they've done interesting stuff. On cross-border payments, in fact, HSBC in the UK has launched Zing, which is our own fintech, which competes with a firm like TransferWise or anybody else, which is a P2P global fund payments app. We have a venture stream which invests in these companies. We keep looking at opportunities both in India and around the world. So next month in Mumbai, we have the Global FinTech Fair. We are there. I'm a part of the panel. We are very visible there. So we're partnering with those people, and many of the founders, CXOs, CEOs are people we work on a day-to-day basis.
As a following on the same topic of fintech and digital wallets, so we have seen a proliferation of these digital wallets and particularly super apps like Alipay or WeChat Pay in China. So the key asset that is driving all of this is useful customer data, right? Information about who is buying what, when they are buying it. So basically, all of this exposes the customer to issues and risks related to data privacy. Do you see a massive concern with user data with this rise of the so-called super apps?
No, I think super apps is a generic term quite often used. I think when companies want to do something beyond what they do on a day-to-day basis, they start calling themselves super app. Interestingly, if you're an HSBC Premier customer, we give you an app where you can book your golfing game or your golfing lesson as well. So I think we could argue we may have super features. I may not call myself a super app, but we are, whether we like it or not, we share a lot of data. Quite often in India, you go to a restaurant or you go buy a pizza, and the citizens give me your number first, right? And the moment I came in, I was pretty intrigued as a citizen. I just want that pizza, and why would I need to give my phone number for buying a pizza, right? So we are sharing a lot of our information. I think the Data Privacy Act is in India and around the world. There have been GDPR in Europe, and there have been different data privacy acts trying to bring some method to the madness. Right? I think at the same point of time, things like open banking, and I've spoken about open banking 2-3 times, but just to give you an example, if you were to give consent to a financial information user in the SEMATI or in the open banking framework, we will, subject to your consent, be able to see your other bank statements. We will be able to, subject to your consent, see your mutual fund information or your life insurance information or or the stocks you hold, and so on and so forth, right? These frameworks, right? So at one level, data privacy, at other end, making data more equitable. Because see, traditionally, what's happened and what may have happened, it could be you could have dominant companies which have all your data, and then they have an unfair or a disproportionate advantage at using that data to be able to serve you. But the whole open banking principle in Europe, here, and India is a fantastic framework on open banking. If you give me consent, if you choose to bank with me, or if you choose to do business with me, and open banking is open to not just banks, but also broader financial services providers, subject to appropriate licensing and approvals, you will be able to give me a lot of information subject to your consent, right? You ultimately, as the owner of that data, right? You giving us consent to be able to find that information, to be able to use that information, whether it's your bureau or your open banking information, and then be able to respond, right? Now, do I use that data to be quicker, to be more personalized, to know you better, to empower my relationship manager to give you better advice, to use AI where appropriate to say, listen, do I use all of this information and also technology and also the right person, but also more importantly, the trust and the expertise of our people to manage through it, right? And I think which is what makes good companies different than very quickly. Much of this technology will become very generic, right? So you could be anybody and you could have access to this technology, but then what is the culture at the company? Is it long term? Is it short term? What are people incentivized on, right? How long term a view are you taking? Are you really working with a client, or are you just for that one transaction, right? That culture will differentiate more than necessarily access to that cool technology. That technology will become fairly generic, and as I said, you have to. That's a basic starting point of view. You have to work with people and you have to work with technology, right? But ultimately, the culture will differentiate whether you will trust the company for a long period of time, whether you will work with that company. And we've seen enough examples in India. I will not put one versus the other, but you've seen enough examples of fast growth and then challenges. Financial services, particularly, is an industry where trust trumps everything else, right? Because a bank is only as good as till the moment you trust that bank, right? None of us would keep our money even for 20 minutes if you wanted to. If you had, and just remember, right? In the earlier days, at least you needed to open. Let's say you were starting to lose trust on a company or a bank, you needed to wait till the next morning, till the start of the banking hours. Now everything is on the click of your button, right? So the trust is as good as your ability to reach your mobile phone, right? So that therefore then translates into how you set up your company, how you attract people, how you incentivize them, what values are you kind of inculcating on a day-to-day basis, and how you translate that to keep the trust of the client.
Right. So speaking about trust and how I think that is like the core requirement of any banking partner, gonna pivot a bit towards how even the personal banking space is so the retail side, and like customers like all of us are accessing these products. When we talk about who are the people who are endorsing these products, right, and the advertisement campaigns or any kind of endorsements that HSBC runs, like with renowned celebrities like Virat Kohli or Priyanka Chopra. So, what kind of value add are these, celebrity endorsements sort of bringing to the table, given the whole trust factor as well? And how far has it been really helpful to sort of be a catalyst for HSBC?
When you have a great product, you need to tell your story, right? And I think, remember, in any industry, sonification is important, right? Whether in dining, in hospitality, you see stays differentiate themselves based on the storification, right? And I think you need to be able to tell your story. You use every tool to be able to tell the story has to be strong. The story has to be powerful. If your story is strong and powerful, you need to be able to communicate to everybody, right? So who better than Virat Kohli in India from a cricket standpoint to be able to talk about a bank which is active, ambitious, ready to go, right? And who better than Priyanka Chopra to be able to talk about international? Hasn't she achieved so much as an Indian, kind of building her life around the world? In fact, she shot a video for us on HSBC International. That video last when I saw had 250 million views. Now that is more than any Priyanka Chopra video ever on Instagram. So not only were you able to reach out to a lot of people, right? You did it in a manner which resonated with the people. And I think there's a little bit of marketing we all do, right? So as I said, start with trust, build a business which is regulatory compliant, have the right technology foundation, have the risk management framework, build the right culture. And when this piece is strong and it looks good, make sure you just don't keep a good story only to yourself. Take it to the world, right? And I think taking to the world involves social media. Taking to the world involves traditional media. Taking to the world involves PR, right? Taking to the world means at 9:45 p.m. talking to you, right? So I think uh, a strong story needs to be told. And I think sometimes ultimately the bank is the hero and the products are the hero, or people are the heroes, right? But sometimes you work with people who can help you tell the story a little bit even stronger.
Right, sir. So now, we're going to talk about the future a little bit. So, I've been thinking about what is the future of banking going to look like? Is it going to be a sort of winner takes all scenario where a wave of consolidation could set in, which could result in a few mega banks and a few fintech companies ruling the entire banking landscape? Like then these massive tech-enabled institutions that we already have, they could generate a competitive advantage through scale as more and more customers gravitate towards the largest and most personalized and convenient platform. As we are seeing with the super apps as of now. So do you think there could be a winner take all scenario in the future?
Scale is always useful. I think scale is a friend, right? I won't deny that the fact that the scale is a friend, right? It allows you to sweat your resources a lot more. It's a magnet quite often for talent. You can provide them different opportunities and so on. But India is the land of startups, right? India is the land of the challenger. Many of you will go on and build your businesses and do new stuff, right? So I think you need solid banks, you need solid companies, you need the stronger the bank, the stronger their ability to go bank. If you need banks to bank a government, right? Or if you need banks to bank mega corporations, or if you need a bank to bank you in 50 different countries, you need a large bank, right? But at the same point of time, the industry will be constantly challenged. I think entrepreneurialism is a basic human trait, right? And I don't think as humans we will let anybody, a large corporation, be complacent forever. And I think there'll be challenges. And I said technology is making that so much more easier, right? So earlier you had to go open 1,000 branches and then start to identify people and burn a lot of capital and start banking people. And now sometimes, to your point, you could have a neobank, which is a few people and a mobile app, right? But as a bank, as a large bank, you got to figure what is that X factor which that neobank is offering, right? Do you partner with that bank? Do you compete with that bank? Do you serve different segments? Do you complement each other? And I think there are different roles. And in India, we are large, we are growing, we are ambitious as a country and as a bank and as entrepreneurs. And I think there'll be space for a lot of us. There'll be space for the global, there'll be a space for the national hero, and there will be a space for the challengers.
All right, sir. So as we're inching towards the end of the fireside chat, and before I open the floor for questions from my colleagues, um, we've gotten to learn about, probably to sum it up, the three main pillars of banking, technology, people, and trust. And you being the current leader, and we would really be excited to hear any kind of advice that you have for students and professionals looking for a career in banking specifically. So, so your thoughts on these, please.
Well, I think one, be damn curious, right? And I think second, information is now freely available and accessible. So do invest that time in getting to know the industry, getting to know the companies you're targeting, getting to know the framework. I think you can pretty much access any information. I think if you need to connect with professionals, do that, reach out. I think quite often when you build relationships on an organic basis, you gain a lot more in life. And I think so, do that research, find out, be persistent, be ambitious, right? And I think the industry is definitely open, but also you are in a wonderful academic environment at this point of time. I know many of you are experienced, and you spend years in the industry before coming to the program, so you already have experience of the workplace. Use that, but also develop skills which really play to your strengths, right? And I think getting to know each other well, building that network while on campus is going to be very, very useful.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you so much for this fireside chat. It was really helpful and insightful and absolutely interactive. Nidhi, over to you. Thank you so much. This has been it from my side.
Thank you, Kalan Arpita. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much. Trust me, that was quite an engaging conversation. We were all sort of taking up notes during that. So, sir, now we'll sort of open up for the batch to ask the question. We've got 110 odd students sitting on the other side of the Zoom call, so would want to hear their perspective as well. So I'm going to request whosoever has a question, if they could come over a mic and ask them.
Good evening, sir. Thank you for taking out precious time for us. So my name is Ishan Agarwal, and I have over 5 years of experience in Canara Bank. So, sir, earlier in your conversation, you touched base upon the compounding. So with over 25 years of experience, could you please share how compounding has impacted you both professionally and financially? And as we are in the early stage of our careers, what strategies can we leverage so that it can help us in the long run?
Sure. No, I think you make a great point. I think compounding, as we know, is our best friend, right? I think compounding, when used well, is our best friend. And when we try to come in the way of the compounding process, we are our worst enemies, right? I think so. Whether it is investments I have stuck with, whether it is investing in myself, right? And in the early years, doing a bunch of things. So as I spoke about, being a part of different functions, different countries, sometimes giving up on that early promotion to build that strong foundation, which when as time passed, you're able to kind of use to leverage, to fast track, to take your careers and at a much faster pace as once that foundation is strong and in place. So, or in investing or in relationships, wherever, right? I think it only gets better and it only compounds, right? I think the best stock I would have, or the best fund I would have bought is probably 25 years back, right? Because, and very likely it is because the CAGR may be only 18% or 20%, whereas what I invested last year may have done 30%. But that 18% over 25 years is just an incredible total number, right? So even sometimes smaller, more modest returns, when consistent, find a much larger outcome. And that happens in careers. I've seen enough careers disrupt themselves or come in their own way because you wanted to optimize for that 5% more or the 10% more or that easy way out, versus building yourself with a track or a corporation for a period of time. Right? Now, I'm not saying settle for things you don't like, but find things you like and then just be resilient, stick by it. There'll be great days and horrible days and great months and bad months. But if you stick by it, quite often the results are you have alpha on your side.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, sir. I have over 5.5 years of work experience in the BFSI and FMCG sector. Previously, I worked with American Express. Thank you so much for your insights, especially the examples of Virat Kohli and Priyanka Chopra. Lovely examples. I have two questions for you. First is related to Indian equity markets. We have seen a tremendous performance, especially in the small cap and mid cap sectors. And at the same time, we have also seen some traders and some, experts and some pundits talking about the high volume ranges, the valuations which are not suitable for both small cap and mid cap. So in this scenario, how does your division or how does any of your wealth manager, even you in person, balance the expectations of your clients? And the second question, which I would like to ask you, is that how does HSBC or how would you see AI as a product? Does AI stand as a disruptor? Does AI stand more of a supporter in decision-making tools, or does AI stand more of a simple tool for your clientele at large?
Let me split both the questions. I think the first is on investing and India being expensive or pockets of India being perceived to be expensive, right? I think one, which is why working with experts is always useful, right? We will always have a house view. We will always have an understanding of where to guide clients depending on their appetite, their time frame. You could be 1 year away from retirement and have different life needs, and our advice would be very different than if you were 25 and starting out your life over the next 30 years. You wanted to remain invested for a part of your journey, right? And I think which is why sometimes one size fits one, right? So we got to be able to understand your life story, and to be able to kind of walk you with the choices. And the choices now are not just the public markets. You got debt, you got private equity, you got late stage venture capital. We give access to our clients to a variety of investment options in India, options overseas, options in equities and options in bonds, options in a multi-cap fund or a focused small cap, options on a fund focused on banking or exports, right? So if you know how the defense story played out last year. So you will always have thematic stories and you'll have longer term plays, right? And I think which is why when you work with firms with your expertise, and your ability to work with them and spend that time. I think, as I said, health, fitness, and financial fitness is a part of fitness, right? I think just being financially fit, understanding yourself, working with a partner, incredibly useful. One personal advice again, if you can, stay away from leverage, right? If one very candid personal advice, I would say, lots of research which has been published in India on how leverage is probably not helped most people. Right? So you use the word trader. I love the word investor. Right? So invest in yourself, invest in the markets. Right? We all have sometimes an occasional quest to be a trader, but my personal, right, this is a very personal advice: stay away from leverage, play the long game. You will have disproportionately better results over a period of time than moving in and moving out, right? Now, sometimes the markets do get expensive. The point is, at that point of time, how do you rebalance? How does your weightage move? What markets are you exposed to? How much do you move to debt? How much defensive are you? How much aggressive are you? And that positioning changes with how markets do. But playing the long game is just incredibly more powerful. So that's just my little personal advice, having been long, short, traded futures, written calls, written puts, and done most good things in life, right? So focus on the long game, focus on yourself, right? The second part is the AI part. I think I think it's an incredible tool, right? I think I'm sure all of us have downloaded ChatGPT. We have multiple tests and pilots going around in India and around the world. I feel that assistance and enablement are probably the way at this point of time, right? Having said that, the technology is still at an early stage of, and if you have been there a long time, and most of you would be probably just about born at that point of time. If you early 2000s, when internet bank was coming, people said the branches are dead, right? Branches have succeeded and they've done extremely well after that, right? Similarly, when all of you are alive and thriving in the middle of COVID, and everybody said, listen, it's only digital now, no shopping, no travel, right? And there has been never more travel in the recent past, right? We all love experiences and we spoke about experiences. So be aware, be curious, we will use technology, but fundamentals of human life don't change that quickly, right? We will still want to meet each other. I would have loved, now obviously technology is making this call possible, I being in Bombay and you being in a very different part of the country, but it's still a lot more fun if we were together in person, right? So I think there is, some things won't change. But
All right, sir.
learn all about it, learn all about AI, test it out, test as many use cases as you can, and be very open to technology as it comes our way.
Thank you, sir. We'll ask if somebody in the batch has a question. I see a hand raised.
Hello, sir. I'm Sonal, and I have 6.5 years of experience with Indian Bank. My question is, a couple of months ago, HSBC opened one of Asia's largest branches at Whitefield, Bengaluru, and it is said to be a big move on part of the bank to expand its business banking vertical. That being said, HSBC still has a very limited presence in India when we talk about the number of branches, especially in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. What would you say is the bank's strategy to grow and capture the business, which is still dominated by large public and private sector banks in India?
No, I think you make a great point. I think once we continue to amplify all kind of presence, right? So the Whitefield branch, we wanted to be experiential. If you're in Bangalore, I would highly recommend we should go check out Whitefield. I think bringing the future, whether 20 different types of coffee or the best financial advisors, or just experiencing the Whitefield is the place in Bangalore where a lot of innovation is happening, and we're in the middle of it. We love that space. We continue to explore all kinds of avenues of growth, which include physical distribution, hiring relationship managers, reaching out to the clients, exploring whether more physical branches make sense, massively digitizing, right? And I gave that 40-second example. And I think you should be able to do banking in India and around the world, depending on wherever you are in the country, right? So even if I am not next to you physically, you should be able to bank with me like you were next door, right? And all of us know that the role of cash in our lives is reducing dramatically, right? And the role of technology is enhancing. So I think we are in a great space with a solid brand, with an ability to connect you with the world, products which are available domestically. But the local banks, we love that the local banks are doing well. We love that the large local banks do well. And I think as an Indian, forever Indian kind of bank, but with kind of a global heritage, we feel that we have a space to add value, and we have a space to bring multinationals to India. We have a space to take Indian companies overseas, and we have the space to bring investments to India, and we have the space to take Indians overseas. So I think there is so much to be done for this bank, and I think competition will always inspire, and it will always require us to do even better.
Thank you so much, sir.
Do we have any more questions?
Hello.
Yeah.
Hi, sir. I am Ashish, and I was working with Canara Bank for the last 6 years. So I have a question related to blockchain technology. We all know that blockchain developed as a part of infrastructure for various cryptocurrencies, and these currencies were variously adapted or rejected by many stakeholders, particularly the central banks. So my question is related to how actually HSBC is using this technology, and how do you see banking growing with this technology? And
So we spoke about CBDC. I think CBDC leverages blockchain effectively. I think we were a pilot bank for CBDC. We use CBDC not only in India but around the world. I think blockchain as a technology has a long way to go. So we spoke about AI, we spoke about blockchain, we spoke about the India stack. All the infrastructure and the technology will continue to make progress. Now, if you look at HSBC's global money product, do you know if you were actually making a cross-border payment at HSBC and you were using HSBC global money with HSBC being both sides, the payment is actually made real time. So you could play from one country to the other on a real time basis because it's relying on its own rails, right? And similarly, a lot of blockchain use cases fostering transparency, fostering faster payments, and I think we move trillions of dollars both on the wholesale and the individual side. And I think wherever technology allows us to use it better, we would use that technology.
sir, and if I may ask, how do you see blockchain and AI? Because Smith was earlier asking about AI. So how do you see both these techs and integration of both these techs for the banking industry?
They will, I think, see, different modules of technology will come together, right? But ultimately, see, think about it, right? As an individual or a business, you want the bank to work with you, right? So, for example, if you had a deposit account, or if you wanted to make an investment, or you wanted to buy that insurance, or travel overseas, or pay with a card, or whatever form, right? You want to live your life, right? Or if you're a business, you were mostly interested in running your business and managing your cash flows better and getting access to credit and enabling trade, right? The technologies you speak about are for the banks and the enterprises to use to be able to make lives for clients easier, to be able to work with the client better, right? So we, just for reference, we employ 40,000+ people in India, right? The technology for around the world, some of the best engineers are sitting in Pune writing that technology. Some of the most exotic, exciting product innovation on payments is happening for globally for our teams based out in Bangalore. And so we are looking at these technologies for India and around the world. But I'm proud that over 40,000 of our colleagues in India are actually involved in many of these changes around the world.
Thank you so much, sir.
Hello, sir. I'm Shruti. I have 6.5 years of experience in banking and financial services sector. Thank you for the insightful session. While you were talking about the importance of culture and trust in the banking industry, I'm curious to know that with operations in numerous countries, how does HSBC navigate cultural differences and varying regulatory environments to maintain a cohesive corporate identity?
Yeah, no, I think you make a great point. I think, see, at the heart, the culture is not different, right? I think the culture, the values, the ethos of the firm is very similar, right, around the world. And you see different corporations, they have their distinct culture, identity, and regulations. There are many regulations which are very common. So we spoke about things like CBDC or open banking or bureaus or data privacy or, broad compliance or customer fairness. I think you will see elements and shades of these regulations in different markets, right? Like common law, many of these regulations are very similar, but at the same point of time, you will have central banks or other tertiary regulators regulate your business, and you've got to make sure that while you follow a common ethos, you're 100% compliant to wherever you operate. So we would work with our regulators around the world, but we would work with regulators, for example, here in India with RBI, or for our mutual fund business, the SEBI, or our insurance joint venture with IRDA, right? Or for the data privacy regulator, or multiple other regulators, to make sure you're 100% compliant to the local rules in that market.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So the badge is absolutely bustling with enthusiasm to talk more to you. So I'll just take a few seconds and steal a little bit of time to ask you to please visit our campus, sir. While this has been an absolutely enlightening conversation, a brilliant interaction with you, we would love to have you here on campus. Please do come. It's a lovely, lush green campus. We'd love to show you around. And more than that, we'd love to have the batch meet with you. You have a reservoir of experience and knowledge we can all leverage. We would all love to hear from you, sir.
Thank you.
So
Would love to do that.
you, sir.
Would love to do that at a future moment. I look forward, right? I think having heard of XLRI for the longest time, and the wonderful reputation your institution has, would love to come and be a part.
Thank you so much, sir. We are really eager to welcome you here. And now I'm going to ask my fellow colleague and friend Ankit Singh Gupta to deliver the vote of thanks to our esteemed guest.
What an enriching and insightful session it has been tonight. On behalf of the entire PGTM batch, I would like to extend a warm vote of thanks to Mr. Sandeep Batra for sharing with us his experiences and knowledge regarding the banking world. He has shared eye-opening facts about HSBC Bank, which has sparked a keen interest within all of us present here this evening, I'm sure. He has also broadened our understanding of the international banking strategies and the opportunities arising in India for us. The need for dynamicity, non-complacence, and agility are the driving forces of the banking industry, and that is a thought which we all will keep in the back of our minds for all our future endeavors. We all express our sincere gratitude for the revelations and learnings shared with us today. Please join me in extending our sincere thanks to our guest of honor.
Thank you so much, guys. Been a pleasure. Looking forward to being in touch. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank
Thank you so much for taking out the time to meet.